breakfast puppies?
This podcast contains adult language and content and is meant for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The Glitterbois was recorded live before a studio audience.
When I was a teenager, first getting into Palladium, barely a teenager, I loved so much of that metal as fuck feeling of Palladium Fantasy First Edition. I loved the art. It was just grungy. It was dark. It had this sinister feeling to it. But one of the things about that book and my exposure to it instead of Dungeons and Dragons that really drove in that whole metal as fuck feeling for me were the Insanities. Palladium has insanity mechanics. Your character can go nuts. Now, you may be familiar with other games such as Call of Cthulhu or whatnot that give you like sanity points. And as you reach a certain level, you might break and go nuts. Palladium straight fucking gives you insanities.
And they can be caused by so much, big things and little things.
Yeah. All of the causes of insanities are across the board. In the old school fantasy books, there's really only 2 pages for the insanities. And they're just insanity tables, some random rolls, and that's it. Some small details on how you can cure it that have random effects. In the later books, they get more and more in depth with what these insanities are, where they come from, and how you can get them, how you can cure them, what they actually do, and so on and so on.
And importantly, how you can play them.
Yes. I liked them better in the old days, except for a few specific concepts. So let's give an overview of what we mean by insanities in Palladium. We're not talking, fear points or sanity gauge or close to flipping out kind of thing. We're talking about role-playing descriptive traits that get applied to your character, either temporarily or permanently. Examples, such as fascination with death in all of its forms, worried about germs and disease, invasion of the body snatchers feeling, extreme aggressive, violent paranoia kind of stuff. These are all role-playing triggers. They give your character afflictions. Many other role-playing games have them. They might call them flaws or afflictions or curses, just things that will affect the way that you role-play your character. Palladium's role-playing focus is like so crucial to its experience system. So role-playing your character is the number one way of getting XP in Palladium. So this just gives you more that you have to think about. Some of them can be pretty brutal, like, if one of them is like you get into combat and you freeze and wet your pants and do nothing. That's just not kind of fun. Some are mindless aggression. You start attacking people, including your friends, and so on and so on.
It should be noted that there's subcategories here. There's a base random insanity table where it all starts. So something bad happens to you physically, psychologically, emotionally, you could be put there. Now, some of them in the base insanity table are self-explanatory and no further rolling is required. Like you could develop a homicidal rage, or you could develop a psychosis, and you're going to have to flip to the 2 pages of psychoses, or an affective disorder, and you're going to have to flip to the page on that. There has been a lot of thought about human frailty in this system, especially in its final form. And I honestly really like that, because while things like the homicidal rage is kind of that's a party problem. If you get into that, nobody wants to sleep next to the berserker. If you're looking at the psychoses or the affective disorders table, that's something that's going to be really interesting about your character.
If we go all the way back to first edition fantasy, we've got 2 pages. If you're looking along in the red and black book, it's page 10 and 11. These pages are very minimal. They talk about the 3 different types of insanity. Those are organically caused, environmentally caused, and the third is a mixture of the 2, which is by far the most common. But they fall into categories of trauma. Trauma is listed as one of the causes and what it can lead to. The possession is something that can cause insanity, which I like the idea that not just possession, but resurrection. If your character is resurrected, the GM can optionally have you roll on the random insanity table or even random phobia table. Something,
you've been dead.
Yeah, it's a traumatizing experience. But anyway, they have affective disorders, neuroses, psychoses, and phobias.
So obsession is new.
Yeah, well, I think obsession
and psychosis as a different table, I think.
Yeah. Well,
and addiction.
Yeah.
Addiction is new too.
So here are some notes. We go back to the first edition. We look at the descriptions of things. Like, for example, there's a random phobias table. It's got a couple dozen things on it that are just very simple. Phobia. If you roll a 1 to 5, it's insects. If you roll a 45 to 50, it's the undead. If you roll a 81 to 85, it's gods, and so on. There's no other detail given. Phobia, gods. Done. Write it down. Move on. But if you look at Rifts, this Ultimate Edition culmination, which is 9 pages of Insanities? Everything is detailed.
Yeah. Page 336 is entirely filled with phobias. Almost every percentage point. 1 has one, 2% has one, 3% has one, and so on. It stops at, it doesn't stop at 92. It's actually 2 pages because they put a spider on there. Okay, so there's 100 phobias there.
Yeah, and then there's, back in the first edition, which I've got open in front of me, we have things like affective disorders, like hates music or frightened by loud noises or disgusted by things that are sticky. But then we have neuroses. And here's where we're going to talk about something unfortunate. This has changed since the publishing of Palladium Fantasy First Edition. Palladium Fantasy First Edition, first printing, fantasy, red and black cover, 1983. Neuroses tables has things such as fear of the dark, with about a sentence about what it means. Fear of animals, a sentence of what it means. Cannot tell the truth, another sentence. And then finally, we have sexual deviation.
That's not there anymore.
Roll percentile for the following table. On this table, I'm going to start from the back, from the high end of this table. From a 91 to 100, you have sexual deviation of voyeurism. Beneath that, you have nymphomania. Beneath that, you have anti-sex prudeness. Beneath that, necrophilia, then masochism, sadism, exhibitionism. And then we get into transvestism, pedophilia, fetishism, and then homosexuality.
I can see why that left. There were a lot of fun things, and then it went not so fun.
Yeah.
However, they could have probably taken out for a modern edition the transvestitism and
fetishism.
Yeah.
Any of these
still
really
gotten away with it.
Just take out sexual deviation, because that's ultimately something that unless we're playing Penthouse, the role-playing game, I don't need sex-related tables in my game.
Well, think of the market back then, though. We're old because we grew up playing these games, but for that time, it was marketed to a much younger crowd. The audience has grown. But back in the day, you're thinking 13 to 25.
Sure. Okay. I don't remember that being in the book.
I don't either.
So now looking at this book, which I have had almost 30 years. I was 14 when I got this book.
Mm-hmm.
I did not remember that being there. I think it got taken out pretty quickly. I think like subsequent printings of this same book, I don't think have it.
You think?
Yeah.
I have the second edition nearby.
No, I'm pretty sure second edition doesn't have it.
I don't suppose it's in the Rifts original.
Good question. It's not.
This is only a 2-pager too.
Yeah, it definitely didn't make it into Rifts. Yeah, it got cut out pretty quickly because I have the digital first edition book here, and it's not there. Yeah, I think they took it out. I think they took it out pretty quickly, and I don't blame them.
Yeah. I mean, God, what was that? 83? You said that book was published?
Yeah.
I could see how that would have been a normal thing to say at that time, but the speed with which it was taken out, would imply that they probably received backlash from it even back then.
Any edition past that first printing has neurosis in the same number, 50 to 64, instead of sexual deviance, invasion of the body snatchers.
Interesting.
Yep. Here we have touched upon one of the darker, unfortunate sides of Palladium, but I still play it. I still buy their books, you know?
That said, though, they took it out. So I'm not going to hit it too hard. There's
taking it out instead of doubling down. That's always good.
Yeah. I always try and look at things from the past in the context of the society they were in and not where we are now. It's just unfair.
Yeah. And I believe in forgiveness.
Yeah. Especially if they take it out and, make an effort to do it right. Mm-hmm. Palladium has stumbled a time or two in that. But I feel they've also put in good work on that. But that has nothing to do with Insanity. So let's steer that back.
Yeah, back to Insanities and how they affect your character. They are afflictions. Again, role-playing afflictions. There are very few of them, I think, that have mechanical modifiers. If they do now, I'm not aware of it. I haven't used Insanities in a long time, and I prefer going back to the simpler format of the first edition. Not that first edition, but I did like the 2-page spread with the modified invasion of the body snatchers, etc. But
yeah.
2-page spread simplicity. It has causes, it has some saving throw notes, it has possible cures, and we call it good. I don't need 7 pages about going crazy.
Think about it this, though. Think about it this way. Rifts is more expensive, and we know from our reading before that Palladium was initially designed to be softcover books sold at a very cheap price point. So when you have all this other stuff, it would make sense why the Ultimate Edition costs more. It's A, it's a hardcover. B, it's massive for a Palladium book. There's just more stuff. Now, I want to say this, compared to the $60 that you would pay for whatever version of fucking D&D is happening right now, you get so much more from a Palladium book.
Yeah.
Just mad details. No, it doesn't always cover everything, but where it does, it goes for it. There are rabbit holes all over this particular field, and you can dive down any one of them.
Agreed. I don't think that a role-playing game system should have a rule for fucking everything. And I think a lot of the rules that are missing in games like these, such as, drowning rules or dying of hypothermia or stuff, they have those rules in later books and whatnot. But in the core book, what I want is the stuff that is on point. I want the book to stay on point with its theme and show me how to focus on that theme. The rest of the stuff I can make up on the fly. That's what the GM is for. Adjudication.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're playing a computer game.
Yeah. That accounted for every possible option and question that the players want. And Insanities are one of those that I like. I like the idea of the Insanities. I want to keep them simple. So I do like the Rift Ultimate Edition Insanities to go into a lot of detail. A lot of detail that I think is kind of unnecessary.
I'm actually looking through the phobia table now in Ultimate Edition just to see if they had snuck back in any kind of sexual deviance, quote unquote, in here, because this would be the place to do it.
I think opposite sex might be in there, but I think that one's always been around. Fear of the opposite sex.
Closest I'm seeing is succubus and demons with a female persona. No, I think they just killed it.
And I'm okay with that. Yeah. I just don't need sex craziness to be a mechanic in my role-playing game unless I'm playing with the Dungeons and Dragons book of erotic fantasy. And I've done that once, and it was a hilarious game. Let me tell you about my orcish sex priest sometime.
I mean, I'm listening. I don't know what more you want.
Anyway, any more notes on Insanity?
No. And now everyone listening to this wants to know.
Well, join us in our Discord or talk to us online, and we'll strike up a discussion
about his orcish sex priest. All right, everyone. That was Insanities in Palladium. Yeah, I think that kind of wrapped it. Did you have anything else?
One note is that one of my favorite Insanities is the one where you believe you're a therapist. And then you try to cure other people's insanities. That one is chef's kiss. That's just well done. Okay, that's all I got.
All right, everyone. See you next time. Bye.
You've been listening to The Glitterbois, a Palladium Books fan podcast. Glitterbois, Rifts, the Megaverse, and all other such topics are the property of Kevin Siembieda and Palladium Books. Please buy all their stuff and help keep them in print and making more games. You can order directly at palladiumbooks.com, and their entire catalog is available digitally at Drive-Thru RPG as well. Our opening music is 8-Bit Bass and Lead by Furby Guy from freesound.org. This closing music is Caravana by Philip Gross, available at freemusicarchive.org. All sound effects used are self-made or acquired via Creative Commons Zero license. If you like what you have heard, find us on Twitter and Facebook as The Glitterbois. That's BOIS. And check us out online at breakfastpuppies.com/glitterboys. And also join us on the Breakfast Puppies Network Discord at breakfastpuppies.com/discord. And if you want to help us out, please spread the word and help us build a community. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time.